All set.
All right, thank you, Sean, and good evening, members of council, admin, and those who are watching from the comforts at home. Welcome to our regular meeting of council of Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. And with that, I would like to call the meeting to order. All members are present, but Councillor Dowie is on leave of absence until after June. So we'll have that in the minutes. And so we did not have a closed meeting to disclose tonight. And so we'll move right into, well, the land acknowledgement as well was done in our very first public meeting. And so we'll go right to disclosure of pecuniary interests. Members of council? None indicated. Thank you. We'll have that reflected in our minutes. And speaking of minutes, we've got our regular council meeting of May 10th, the special council meeting, May 5th, 2022, strategic priorities. In the special council meeting, May 10th, the clerk service delivery review. And if I could have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented that evening. Deputy Mayor McKetty and Councillor Jobin. On those minutes, any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. No supplementary agenda items to deal with today, and we don't have any delegations, but we do have communications, members of council. I believe we have 15 pieces of communications. If I could have a motion to receive. Councillor Altenhoff, Councillor Tonio, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. On those 15 items, members of council, is there any information items that you would like to bring forward? None. Then we'll move on to communications action required. We have the 33rd annual Essex Region Conservation Foundation golf tournament scheduled for Thursday, July 21st, 2022. And it is recommended that the mayor and members of council be authorized to attend the 33rd annual Essex Region Conservation Foundation golf tournament scheduled for Thursday, July 21st, 2022, from 11:45 to 5 p.m. at the Kingsville Golf and Country Club in accordance with the education and travel policy subject to the 2022 budget funding. Moved by Deputy Mayor McKetty, supported Councilor Houston. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Committee minutes, we have the minutes of the Tecumseh Accessibility Advisory Committee dated April 28, 2022 and May 10th, 2022. If I have a motion to accept those minutes as presented. Mary, Councillor Houston and Councillor Jobin, support. On the motion, any questions or comments? And I believe I'll just add that the accessibility will be raising the flag, I believe, Miss Alexander, on the 29th of Friday. So members of council, I believe Monique sent out some invites for 1 p.m. So if you can make it, we'll raise the flag in accordance. So on the motion, then all in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Thank you. Move on to reports. First reports are community and recreation services, and it is the awarding for the supply and install of 2 HVAC units at the Cata Library. So I'd like to call upon Mr. Anthony, our director, to summarize his report and bring forward a recommendation. Mr.
Yes,
Anthony.
Mayor McNamara, members of council. In the budget this year, we did budget $44,000 to replace 2 HVAC units at the library. We did go through the procurement process, and with the continuing rising costs of these units, and with some changes that are going to be made to the units 5, 10 and above over the next year, The prices will increase again because they're going to change the specifications for energy efficiency in those units. So we're able to purchase 2 at this time. The prices again are rising, but the cost of the project is $5,000, which is over the 10% maximum of over budget. So we require council approval to move forward with the purchase of these items. I'm open for any questions council may have on the report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anthony. Well, surprise, surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody at this stage here. Any questions or comments? None, then a motion to recommend move forward. Councillor Altenhoff, move. Support, Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed, if any of that is carried.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anthony. Number 2, development services. We have a site plan control for Bear Developments, Inc. at 5395 and 5405 Outer Drive. So I'll call upon our director, Mr. Hillman, to summarize his report and bring forward a recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council. If we could have attachment number 1, please, brought up. And very briefly, 2 site plan approvals tonight. The first is on Outer Drive. It's a just under 2-acre property outlined in red on the image, just north of Blackacre Drive. There's a building situated on the north side of the building with a parking area. And an application has been filed to provide for the construction of a second building of just under 10,000 square feet. And if we go to attachment 2B, please. 2B, one more, please. Just a little easier to see. There we go. So north generally is towards the top of the screen on site here. You'll see the existing buildings in gray. And the proposed 2 buildings are in a pinkish color. So what's being proposed is a just under 10,000 square foot industrial building and a 980 square foot proposed storage building associated with it just towards the rear of the property against the 401 corridor. The parking lot will provide for 45 spaces, which meets the zoning bylaw, and it will be hard surfaced with curbing and proper drainage. The existing storage area, fencing and landscape buffers are in accordance with the requirements of the zoning bylaw. When completed, Mr. Mayor, and if approved, it would result in a 20,000 square foot building footprint on the property. A variance was considered by the Committee of Adjustment previously and granted for a slightly reduced side yard where the pink building is located. So the bylaw requires just under 20 feet, and a variance was granted for 9.8 feet for that building. So it does comply with the zoning in consideration of that one variance. From a servicing perspective, this area is on full municipal services. Sanitary sewage, water, and storm is available. Stormwater study is nearing completion. It will require a finalization prior to, if council grants the site plan approval coming into effect. And otherwise, Public Works and Engineering is in support of the servicing proposed for the site. So ultimately, Mr. Mayor, we are recommending support of the application. There is a security deposit typically of $10,000. That's a performance security to ensure all the matters are addressed through the development process. In this instance, there is a quality control unit issue, mechanism that's required for stormwater purposes. So there's an additional $15,000 security required. We want to ensure that those are installed. Stormwater has become a critical issue. And so that performance security for this development is increased to $25,000 returned upon all the works being completed. So the recommendation ultimately is that the site plan SP1 as prepared by Bear Construction for the addition as shown on the screen here for 9,435 square foot industrial building and a 980 square foot accessory storage structure with associated on-site works at 5395 to 5405 Outer Drive be approved, subject to security for $25,000 cash letter of credit being provided to ensure performance, and that a stormwater management report and associated servicing drawings are finally approved by the town, all of which would be in accordance with Section 41 of the Planning Act. So, Mr. Mayor, that's a summary of that approval.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hillman. Any questions or comments to Mr. Hillman? Councilor Jovan.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just for conversation purposes, what is currently operating out of there? I'm going to assume it's a growth and expansion of their current operation.
Yes, right now, there's two construction companies and a warehousing storage use on the property. The addition, it is not clear at this time. It could be a combination of construction uses. And they have been working on this development for some time. So the exact tenants they've lined up has not been finalized from what we're aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, then on the motion. Moved by Councillor Houston and Deputy Mayor Burketti, support. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right, move on to 2B. It's a site plan control for 1808250 Ontario Limited in care of Rosati Construction at 5515 Roscon Industrial Drive. So again, I'll call upon our director, Mr. Hillman, to summarize the report and bring forward a recommendation.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. If we go to attachment number 1 for the location of the property. So this is 5515 Roscon Industrial Drive. So the property outlined in red, just south of Blackacre Drive. You can see there's a building somewhat on the central portion of the property with some parking and so on. Again, this is for a proposal to add the construction of a 14,000, almost 500 square foot addition to the rear of the property. Right now, there's a 31,000 square foot building you can see on this image on the property. If we go to attachment 2B, please. Again, a variance was granted just for the side yards, for the orange in this case, addition that is proposed just to the northwest of the building. And that was from 20 feet to 11.4 feet that was granted by the Committee of Adjustment, and a slight increase in maximum lot coverage from 40 to 44%. This building is proposed to be developed on the rear of the property. The site will be fully asphalted and stormworks installed as well. You can see that this area is currently served by septic, so that will continue to be the case. Certainly the municipality has the intention of introducing full sanitary sewers to the area ultimately, but they aren't there at the current time. So that is permitted as an interim condition in Oldcastle. It is zoned M1 right now. The proposal fully complies with the zoning that's in effect, with the exception of the variance that was granted by the Committee of Adjustment. Again, stormwater study is underway. There's been consultations with our engineering division. No unexpected issues anticipated, and that is moving forward. And it will also require a quality control unit on site. So in summary, Mr. Mayor, we are recommending support of the addition. And as with the other application, an increase in the security to $25,000 to ensure the installation of the approved stormwater quality unit on the property. All performance security is returned upon completion of the works. So ultimately, it's recommended that site plan A1-0 prepared by Rosati regarding the 14,430 square foot addition at 5515 Roscon Industrial Drive be approved. Conditional and subject to the provision of the $25,000 performance security and stormwater management report and associated drawings being finally approved by the town, all of which will be in accordance with Section 41 of the Planning Act. And Mr. Mayor, happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments to Mr. Hillman? I do have one question, Mr. Hillman. It's when you talked about the quality of water and so forth. Now, is it going to bring the existing building, which has been there on site, or is it to include that into with the new facility, or is it just basically are they grandfathering the first piece and then because of the new construction, or bringing all of them into the new norm?
So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Bartnick may need to speak to this, but there is consideration given to some grandfathering to recognize that, but I'll let Phil give some details on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, through you, your worship. So as Mr. Hellman did allude to, we do, look at grandfathering in and look at it as a case-by-case scenario. What's being proposed, I think, on this site, the Rosati site, is that there will be some underground storage for the stormwater as well. So it kind of has the dual effect that not only serves as their quantity control, but it also has a quality aspect to it as well. So it's my understanding that it would look at providing quality for the entire site.
Okay. Yeah. It was more out of curiosity than others. I thought maybe there'd be kind of a balance there because of existing to new. And that, so thank you for that. If no further questions or comments, then a motion then to adopt the report. Councilor Tonia move and Councilor Jobin support on the motion. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Our next report is the Financial Incentive Program grant application on Tecumseh Road Main Street Community Improvement Plan for 1122 L'Esperance Road. So I'll call upon our director again to bring to summarize the report and bring forward a recommendation.
And thank you again, Mr. Mayor. If we go to attachment 1B, this is an air photo outlining the property that is the subject of the application at 1122 L'Esperance Road. And you'll see that at the L'Esperance side of the property outlined in yellow is a parking area, and there's a small commercial building to the east, which has 3 professional uses that are in there. And this property actually has been the subject of a few applications previously by council under the CIP program. There was a $3,000 planning design grant that was granted. There was a facade improvement that took place, capping out at $15,000. And so if you've been by the property, you will have seen the front of the building has been improved. And a small grant for a building permit fee for $561. So the owner has utilized the grant program available. Right now, the current application is for parking area improvement grant, the program in the CIP, and it is in the amount of $7680, which we'll get to later in the report, $7,680. It's for the removal of the existing asphalt and repaving of the parking area, or relining of the parking area, installation of new bumpers, and the installation of new catch basins with respect to proper drainage. Just going to drawing 1A, if we could, just quickly, just to remind council and the public, this is part of the Tecumseh Road CIP. You can see the area outlined in red is the CIP, roughly 1.2 kilometers along Tecumseh Road, and going north and south a bit along L'Esperance. The property in question is the yellow dot. That's an area that's subject to the community improvement plan passed under the Planning Act and offers grants available for improvements to properties. So more specifically on this one, there were 2 estimates that were provided as required by the CIP that quoted the project, and the low quote results in a request amount of $7,680, which is 50% of the eligible costs, capped out at $10,000 based on the CIP. We reviewed the application and the project and find that it does comply with the criteria set out in the CIP. If council grants it, the next steps would be for the owner to commence works. And there's 6 months to start, a year to complete from the time we indicate formally in correspondence to the owner. Council passes it. Once the works are completed and reviewed, the grant is provided to the owner. The financial implications on this, Mr. Mayor, the budget for 2022 did allocate $125,000 to the grant program. This is our first application this year. And there was a slight carry forward. So we're at 127,000. And if this is granted, it would bring the allocation to 119,000 for 2022. So the recommendation is that the grant application for 1122 L'Esperance Road be deemed eligible and approved for the parking area improvement grant as described and in accordance with the CIP and this report. And happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hillman, on the report. Any questions or comments? None, then a motion then to adopt the report as presented. Councilor Altenhoff, Councilor Houston. All in favor? Votes if any, that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to 3A, Legislative and Clerk Services. That's it. The 2022 Tecumseh Elections Compliance Audit Committee application. I'll call upon our Manager of Committee and Community Services, summarize the report and recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, members of council. As reported to council earlier in March, the Municipal Elections Act does require that council establish a compliance audit committee on or before October 1st of an election year. The term of the committee is the same term as the council that appointed them. As approved at the March meeting, council did authorize the calling for applications for the committee, as well as approve the committee's terms of reference. The terms of reference have been appended to tonight's report for ease of reference. The committee is to be comprised of no fewer than 3 and no more than 7 appointed members. The Municipal Elections Act does restrict employees of the municipality, members of council, candidates, and registered third parties in election from being appointed to the committee. It is common to appoint members who have an accounting or an auditing background, legal expertise, knowledge of local government, and/or knowledge of the Municipal Elections Act. In keeping with the committee local board and application and appointment policy, a notice for the call for applications was published in the Essex Free Press, posted on the town's website, and shared to the town's social media accounts. Prior members were contacted for their continued interest in serving on the committee, and professional associations were contacted to invite applications. 4 applications were received, 3 of whom serve on the current committee. Copies of the applications were made available for council for their review. Subject to any questions this evening, we are respectfully asking for the report presented before you to be received, and that the Tecumseh Election Compliance Audit Committee consists of the following 4 members to be appointed for the term November 15th, 2022 to November 14th, 2026. Mary Birch, Catherine Hebert, Jerry Marion, and Mary Moss. Thank you, Your Worship.
All right, well, you got 4 Cracker Jacks there for sure. And certainly thank you, Ms. Hebert, for the report. And so I'm looking for adoption of the report. Deputy Mayor Bichetti moves and supported by Councilor Tonio. And no further questions. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you, Ms. Hebert. All right, next, also from our legislative and clerk services, 17 road and abatement. Call upon Manager Committee and Community Services to summarize the report and bring a recommendation forward.
Thank you again, Your Worship. Concerns regarding the presence of rats in the town, primarily in the town's residential areas, has been expressed over the last 3 to 4 years. A number of town measures have been undertaken over the years, including an enhanced education campaign, mandating hard-sided containers for refuge collection, and hosting public information centers in which local pest control companies have been available to provide information on their services to the residents. Last year, a report was presented to council which outlined other local municipalities' rodent abatement programs. Subsequently, at the November 9th, 2021 regular council meeting, council did provide direction for a pilot rodent abatement program and funding in the amount of $10,000 for the 2022 municipal year. The concept, which is prepared and outlined for you at tonight's report, is in regards to the town's pilot rodent abatement program for residential properties, which does propose offer a rebate of up to 50% of an established limit per property to residential property owners to assist with the cost of utilizing a licensed pest control company with removing rats from outside their residential property. As part of the concept pilot program, we are recommending that the property owner would first complete an intake form. They would complete and submit that electronically on the town's website, which would provide details in regards to the location of the rat sighting and the suspected origin of the rats. Financial details, including the rebate allocation and established limit, would be reflected on the form once a licensed pet control company is appointed. Administration would review the intake form for completeness and forward along to the appointed pest control company. Being the experts in the field and trained to be able to properly identify a rodent activity in burrows, they would then attend the subject property to conduct an initial inspection. The pest control company would also identify to the property owner any rodent control prevention measures, such as removing any food sources, standing water, if applicable. If that is noted, the property owner would be required to undertake all preventative measures in order to participate in the pilot program. The pest control technician would proceed with, on the first initial inspection, if appropriate, with laying regulated bait station blocks in strategic locations on the property. They would conduct follow-up inspections and remove the bait stations at the end of the contract timeframe. The property owner would then be responsible for remitting evidence to the town that they have paid the pest control company in full. And likewise, the appointed pest control company would have to submit a detailed report to a town administration outlining the works undertaken at the property and the fees paid. Following submission of both, then we would engage with rebating up to 50% to the property owner for the cost. It is recommended that the town's pilot program be for the balance of the 2022 year or until funding allocation has been exhausted, whichever comes first. With respect to the pest control service provider, it is recommended that an informal quotation process be followed to secure a competitive and fair price to engage a licensed Ontario exterminator with a valid license. The informal quotation would outline the relevant specifications, including the minimum number of follow-up inspections per property and the use of bait station blocks to avoid the use of baits or pellets that can be easily tampered with by children, pets, or unattended wildlife. The pilot program would be evaluated, and a course of action with respect to the continuation of the program or not would be reported out to council in early 2023. Subject to any questions this evening, we are again respectfully asking that the report presented before you be received and that the pilot rodent abatement program for residential properties concept set out in report LCS 2022-17 be approved for the remaining 2022 calendar year to provide a partially subsidized rebate to assist property owners with rat eradication under funding approved in the amount of $10,000 in the 2022 annual operating budget. And further, that an informal quotation process be authorized to contract a licensed extermination company for rodent abatement at a fixed rate per property. Thank you, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Abear. Any questions or comments on the report? Councilor Houston?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, it's nice to see this come forward, and I know we've had some residents come in front of us, and they shared all their experience on it. I'm hopeful that this is the beginning of a program which can help alleviate some of those issues which the residents described. I guess to Christina. I really like the way that we're managing the program, collecting the information. I'm just wondering, because I may have heard a little bit of it, but about a post-program survey, or I'm really interested to hear from the owners how effective, right? What was this? Whether it's they had rodent abatement before, or is this the first rodent abatement they've had? I like it that the residents have skin in the game, right? It forces them to, take some measures to, help alleviate the issue. But I'm really interested to hear from them how effective is this? Did it help? Did it not help? Why? So if we can just maybe close the loop on that a little bit with the residents who we know, take that information or take advantage of the program. I really want to hear from them, how effective do they think it is?
Mhm.
Or if we can just collect that information and have that hopefully in the report in, a year or two, I think it'll be valuable information.
Certainly.
Yeah,
I
and
think- Go ahead, Your Worship, sorry.
Yeah, just to your point, Counselor, I like that approach as well, but I also include the fact that there has to be a little bit of a pre-inspection as well. And I find because, if you're going into a property that has issues or neighbors issue, and there's 14 bird feeders and 2 compost piles, that you could have that, the abatement program there every day, and it's not going to solve solve the problem and so forth. So I think those are critical pieces. But what I do like, though, the skin in the game, as you alluded to, and others can at the same time take notice of their property, and if they've got a shed with no concrete floor, and there's the habitat piece, there's a whole host of issues that need to be looked at in that regards. But I am glad as well that it's a third-party contractor. We just don't have the resources to ourselves to deal with that on an ongoing basis and so forth. So I think once the rules are laid out to to whoever is successful in the contract, and that to really kind of do a pre-inspection and kind of give the information to the individual as well, and why they think that they have a rodent issue. It could be, like I said, if they've got a source of food or habitat, they'll keep coming back. And so they, we got to eliminate those sources, and so that the whole program is successful. So I like the way you laid it out. I think it's really, I think, to the point, and it shows that everybody has skin in the game, but I'll turn that up and say everybody's got some responsibility, to make sure that the program works and so forth, because it's not like going to a banking machine and just keep feeding it. There's individuals have to do their part as well. Councillor Alton, huh?
Thank you, Worship, and through you, I appreciate Councillor Houston and your points, Mr. Mayor, that you've raised. I do want to indicate, I know it was, I think, about 5 years ago when I tried to bring this point up, and I'm glad to see that now we're kind of looking at this, but we're looking at it, I guess, very cautiously. And I appreciate how you phrased it, Mr. Mayor, where everyone who's involved is really paying attention. And I really want to emphasize that point of pre-inspection or pre-review, whatever you want, however you want to refer to it as, because if it's an issue and it's an issue for obvious reasons, well, then fix those obvious issues. And I really want to emphasize that sometimes people are not aware of it or just not educated enough. And I think that would be helpful if we don't want this to be spending money without just cause. And I hope that through that pre-review or the pre-inspection process that can be dealt with and hopefully eliminate some of this draw on taxpayers' monies. I also want to emphasize the point that Councillor Houston raised about ensuring that we're getting good, this is a pilot study, so it's a research study. We need to get good data from everyone who's involved. And I would probably recommend even trying to communicate with neighboring residents, to those who are involved, to see how the suppression of rats and other rodents were dealt with in this process. So I think that's important for us. Final question, perhaps, to administration. I'm assuming there is no location limit to this pilot study. It's throughout the whole town of Tecumseh.
Through you, your worship, yes. And so the municipality and members or, excuse me, property owners within the municipality would be eligible to complete the intake form, and subject to completing the intake form with the fullness of the information provided and the pest control technician doing the initial inspection and finding evidence of rodent activity and or burrows, they would then be eligible to participate in the program, as well as if there is funding still allocated.
Yeah, and again, hopefully dealing with those obvious issues, if they can be dealt with. Thank you very much, Mr.
Ms.
Mayor.
Evans?
Administration.
Sorry, just one, through you, your worship, just one qualification to Christina's otherwise correct answer. It's for residential properties only, not addressing commercial, industrial, and or otherwise.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Antonio.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I had a few comments, but Councilor Houston said them very well, gooder than me. So good job. I'm just glad that this is coming in. This is one of the complaints I've had from constituents in some of our higher density areas for sure. And I'm glad that we're giving them the opportunity to financially help them. But again, they are responsible for their properties, keeping them clean, maintaining them under all our procedures and bylaws. And if they follow those, the chances of rats should not be there. So, we have to do both parts, the education, which we've done for years now. And now we're going to give some financial assistance. So good job and good questions by everybody. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments? I don't know, Chief, I know it falls under the purview of your department and so forth. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but to the report.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Just to add that certainly education would continue to be a part of the program, and our working with our bylaw enforcement officer to clear up existing programs and through the dirty yards and property standards as we currently would today. So,
Okay. All right. So on the report, then a motion to adopt the report. Councilor Altenhoff, Councilor Tonio. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we'll move on to, again, we've got the licensing, and this is still our legislative clerk department. Licensing of mobile food vendors. So I'll call upon our deputy clerk and manager of legislative services, summarize the report, bring forward a recommendation. Ms. Alexander.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. As council may recall, at the June 13th, 2021 regular council meeting, council passed a resolution which authorized administration to research regulations on the operations of mobile food vendors and draft regulatory framework for council's consideration. Currently, the town does not regulate or permit mobile food vendors to operate within the municipality. Presented tonight is a proposed bylaw on mobile food vendors to be permitted to operate within the town through a licensing program for council's consideration. Some of the highlights of the draft bylaw include distinguishing between licensing refreshment vehicles for hot food service offerings and frozen treat vehicles for cold food offerings such as ice cream. Both licenses would require the licensee to obtain an inspection from the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit and Tecumseh Fire Services, including any premises used to prepare food. The licensee would also have to complete a food handler certification through the health unit to ensure safe food handling practices. A refreshment vehicle can be licensed to operate at one location, either in a designated commercial, recreational, or industrial area. If the licensee is interested in operating near an eating establishment, we are recommending a 60-meter buffer between the eating establishment and the refreshment vehicle. Sean, would you be able to put up attachment 2? This map provides an outline of the affected areas using a 60-meter buffer based on the existing eating establishments, which are primarily in commercial areas. It should be noted that the proposed bylaw does not apply to any refreshment vehicles interested in operating within a town park at a town-approved events, such as Taste of Tecumseh. These vendors will continue to be processed through the Special Events Resource Team Committee, and be approved by the Director of Community and Recreation Services. The program is going to be administered through the Legislative and Clerk Services Department, where licenses will be issued on a per calendar year. The report recommends the following: that the report LCS-2022-18 entitled Licensing of Mobile Food Vendors be received, and that administration be authorized to post the report and the draft bylaw on the town's PlaySpeak platform for 30 days to provide opportunity to receive public input on the draft bylaw. And further, that administration report back to council on the outcome of the public consultation and with any recommended changes to the draft bylaw. Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm available to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? Council Tonio, Council Houston, and Deputy Mayor.
Just a few thoughts I've got. If we haven't already, contact the BIA and get, some input from them, how they feel about this. And then when we're figuring, I don't know if we have figured out the fees, but if the fees, I believe, should represent the same as a taxpayer. So if a restaurant is paying X amount for X amount of square footage, the fees got to be, I'm concerned with the current taxpayers that are paying taxes and then another company coming in, just parking a truck, paying a small fee and making a lot of money instead of a decent fee, to make sure we're being compared to our current residents, businesses, that currently pay taxes to serve their food. Understand that point? Sorry, a bit confusing. So just want the permit fee to be close to equivalent to a ratio of the taxes that our current businesses are paying. Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, to start, the BIA, we will be contacting them to let them know that this is going up for public consultation, and I will be contacting Denise at the BIA to let them know that we do wish to have some consultation with them and other stakeholders as well. We already have spoken with the health unit, and they have reviewed the draft bylaw and made their recommendations for us, which is in the current proposed bylaw. We are proposing currently the fee for frozen treat vehicles to be $200 per license and $300 for refreshment vehicles. And that's why we were asking for that buffer of 60 meters away from an eating establishment, so that there isn't that competition in place. But of course, when we do put this on to PlaySpeak, I'm hoping that we do get a lot of engagement with our business owners, and hopefully they will provide us some recommendation as well.
Thank you. And those fees, are they daily or monthly, or sorry?
No, it's just per license.
Per license for the year.
For that, yeah.
For the year. Thank you.
Council Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Jennifer, for the report. If I understand correctly, the food trucks will not be allowed to park on public property, but they're allowed to park on private property. So we can expect, like on Main Street at the end of Poisson, right? It looks like that is 60 meters from any eating establishment. They won't be able to pull over on the side of the road on a Thursday afternoon, and they can't set up shop there.
Correct.
But if there was an empty lot, they could rent a spot from the owner and pull into an empty lot, and they could serve there, correct?
So the idea of going through a licensing program, they would have to get permission from whoever they are renting, I guess, the spot from, and we would have to see proof of that permission in order for us to proceed forward with any sort of licensing. And at that time, make sure that all safety measures are in place. And then if that buffer at the 60-meter buffer is at that point, then we would either have to deny it if it's within that 60-meter buffer, or if it's further out, then we would grant it as long as they have permission in order to operate there.
Okay. I see CAO has her hand up.
If I can just add to that, Mr. Mayor. So the property that they would be parking on, private property, be appropriately zoned for that type of use. And then the one exception on the parking ability to park on the street, I think as Jen alluded to in her presentation, as a frozen treat whatever vehicle would be allowed to be a street vendor, no more than 10 minutes per spot to go into residential areas to sell ice cream, for example.
Yeah, it's like the Dickie B guy. It's going,
Just
with the music, the good humor guy, I call him. Go ahead, Mr. Houston. Go ahead.
Thank you. And just supplementary to that, I mean, I'm not a food truck expert by any means, but I think from what I do know, right, some of them, have quite a following. And, to Councilor Tonio's point, they may pay to license here, they may pay to license in Lakeshore, they may pay to license in Windsor, and it's Windsor Wednesday, and it could be Tecumseh Thursday, and they travel around. So I'm really interested, and I'll also mention this at the BIA. Interested to hear the feedback from not only our businesses here that are brick and mortar and have invested, with us, but also hear what they think, about this sort of offering and what the public, also thinks of it, because I do believe that they have their place right in the market and they can do very well. But interested to hear, the feedback from the play speak that we'll put out. So thank you.
To your point, though, Mr. Houston or Councilor Houston as well, is that if you look at bigger centers, you go to Canadian Tire, there's a food cart there, selling sausages and so forth. Go to Toronto, and if you're on Queen Street in front of the Sheraton, in front of City Hall and Nathan Phillips Square, it's nothing to see 10 or 12 food trucks parked there, 24/7 and so forth. But if I would surmise, if they find an area, a business where they can park and do very well, they're not going to go too far away, in that regard. So again, it's the business is going to drive them to where they want to go, in that regards. Deputy Councilor Aldenhoff and then Deputy Mayor McKetty.
Thank you, Worship. And through you to Miss Alexander, I just want to make sure that, and perhaps this should also go to Mr. Firth, the announcement as well as the opportunity for feedback is basically, it seems it's going to go through the PlaySpeak platform. I just want to make sure that all residents, organizations, companies, everyone has, it's very easy for them to provide, to obtain the necessary documentation for review, as well as provide feedback. So I'm assuming, I've never used the PlaySpeak myself. I just want to make sure that, it's easy for everyone to get at and provide their feedback. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say use our social platform too, social media, to go to PlaySpeak, because I agree with your comments. I don't know general public in general, if they actually could navigate to that, but use every means that we have for them to be able to drive them there. And I'm sure Mr. Firth has some ideas how to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Your Worship, you hit it right on the head, and that's something we've done in the past. We've had multiple topics using the PlaySpeak platform in the last couple of years to promoting public engagement, and I've had some very, popular topics with lots of comments, and others not so much. But yeah, would use every mean possible, whether it's the website, social media, etc., to point everybody in the direction of the resources that are found on the PlaySpeak platform, including the background information for the topic and the dialogue, the public dialogue that is something that is used to report back to council after the engagement, and that'll go into the subsequent report. So yeah, all good feedback tonight. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. I know food trucks are very popular in Northern Ontario, even, when we talk about competition. I believe there's a certain market, like you, Mayor, said, if you want a sausage, you're not going to go in a restaurant anyways. You need to go quick and grab and go. And so that is almost like a service that you're providing those type of residents on the move. But another way where this licensing allows is for example, in the schools, whether it be a high school or elementary school, we have a lot of events. And for example, we want to do a ice cream social, meet the parent night. We would go to the, whoever has a license and call them up and say, can you come this evening from 7 to 9 at school board property? And they offer service. It could be hot dogs, hamburgers. It could be a high school event, football reunion. And so you have availability of these food trucks that can simply come in and they're going to find their niche. They're going to find these events. They're going to find, if there's festivals going on where, people are going to be coming and go. So they're going to find their traffic. And I think it's a good for us to explore this. And again, I'll be interested to see the feedback from the public to have this set up for the future.
All right, any further questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. One thing that just came to mind while you were mentioning Nathan Phillips Square, and I do see in the report that they are not permitted to operate on municipal property. So I'm just wondering if we've contemplated at all, and I understand, we've got the operator in Lakewood, but I'm thinking about Lacoste, or I'm thinking about the arena parking lot.
Councilor, sorry, Ms. Evans, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we've purposely avoided municipal property, parks and what have you. And Mr. Anthony can speak better to this than me, but we already have a process through the Parks and Community and Recreation Services Department for vendors in public spaces associated with special events and what have you. So we did not want to mix apples and oranges here because those types of arrangements for food vendors needs to stay with the department that's responsible for those facilities. But Paul, maybe you can help me out here, please.
Yes, and through Mayor McNamara to Councilor Houston. Individuals, it's very tough because if you have a group or organization come in and apply to the arena for a tournament, for example, and how do you assess that? So functions on municipal property more or less go in groups. So for example, other communities will have a food truck festival, as the deputy mayor had alluded to earlier. It might be on school property, it might be on town property, but it's associated to an event. It's not one-offs. So a lot of our parks, they have individuals. McAuliffe Park, for example, has a little food vending, concession that's always been there. St. Mary's has one. So the parks that have these events there already have some sort of a food service. But if it was going to be a function, that there was an event, i.e. the Taste of Tecumseh, and food vendors are their means for food, then that's allowed. And the proprietor at Lakewood understands that for those events that are approved. So it's approval staying with us and through the CERT committee.
Oh, okay, thank you. And I was just thinking about, the new pickleball facility, and if they've got a tournament, right? Can they, can they have, like, the deputy mayor says, we want to have a couple food trucks because we have a big tournament, or maybe minor ball is having something at the arena in July. Can they ask for a couple of our licensed food trucks to come in and park, and would they be allowed to at that point stay in the park for one weekend or in the arena parking lot?
So to answer your question, something like that would be considered. So it's the event itself, it's Tecumseh Minor Baseball, Tecumseh Minor Hockey. As long as it's their event and they're approving, we would work with them. Now, taking into consideration as well, right now, we don't have a concessions operation, but we are going to look to expand back and look to private sector, the arena, concessions. So once that happens, then you have to be careful again, because a tournament, some of their major income for those concessionaires is those people coming through in that short period of time. The Monday through Thursday, when you have practices and figure skating and men's leagues, there's very little, if any, profit to them. Their sales are minimum. It's those weekend minor hockey events or tournaments that drive that. So there would be consideration given, but again, as our CAO has alluded to earlier, that falls back on our department to work with that group that's having the tournament. I wouldn't want the situation where a food vendor calls me and says, hey, for example, we had the under 17 here the one year. We want to come in for that event. we wouldn't do that. We would work with the vendor that's renting or organizing the event. And if they're admittable and they want, to allow something, there's arrangements that can be made. So I think we want to leave that with our department for those funds. And we don't have the one-offs of people wanting to go into a park in a neighborhood. There may be no ball diamond, there may be only a play set, but let's face it, they're there for the neighborhood. So we want to eliminate those type of requests. So.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. It sounds like we're keeping
and-
an eye on protecting what we have in place, but
if they're well organized, and licensed and they can be quite functional. I see it. I remember one year in Edmonton, FCM, the conference, they had about 30, and it was about 30 food trucks all lined up, and it was outside of their city hall. They gave tours of Edmonton City Hall and that, and I'll tell you, some of the food was outstanding. And, they had everything from first course meals to ice cream and desserts and all kinds of stuff. They had at least 30 of those trucks there. And, but that was a special event. They had, 2,000 delegates. So they had a captive audience. But, you could see it with the Taste of Tecumseh, food trucks make sense. If we don't know if Court Fest ever came back, there's there, but also there's value to the municipality because, as you know, you paid for a square footage for the area and so forth. So there's a lot of events and potentials, in that regard. Because the one thing you don't want to do, and Councilor Tony alluded to it, you don't want to, go after your local restaurants and so forth and hurt them, in that regard. So you want to make sure that, in those special events, to the point, somebody wants a sausage, they're not going to go to Johnny Shots, and just grab a sausage and go home and so, or so forth. So there's a place and certainly a value for that. And, all of us have heard a lot about food trucks and they want to see them. So I think, licensing them and regulating them in a certain aspect, I think makes good sense. And I think it's practical. It makes, obviously, I think, creates something different into our area. Who knows, maybe a food truck festival on a weekend. I don't know. Bring tourism, into the community in certain opportunities. But I think, what administration is brought forward, I think makes good sense. And I think it's working, let's get some feedback from the business community, from the residents, and even the food truck operators. I hope they weigh in as well. And so I think it's a good approach. I think admin has done a great job in preparing for that. Any further questions or comments? Then a motion that on the report to adopt the report. Councilor Houston, Councilor Tonio, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Next, also from our clerk's department, the donation of bronze sculpture of Tecumseh. So I'll call upon Deputy Clerk and our manager to summarize the report and bring a recommendation forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is the donation of a bronze sculpture of Tecumseh. In honor of the town's namesake, Chief Tecumseh, the town is a recipient of a donated bronze bust sculpture in his likeness. Sean, can you show the picture? Created by Michigan artist Margarita, also known as Rita Grieve, who is known for her artwork in multiple mediums, which included sculpture like this. She has since passed, leaving her works to her son, Guy R. Grieve, the donor, and family. Mr. Grieve and his sibling wish to donate the sculpture in honor of his mother, who was raised in Windsor and still has extended family residing here. A draft agreement has been prepared and set out the terms and conditions from the town. The town will be responsible for the materials and installations of the display, as well as future maintenance needs. We will also do recognition of the artist, will be provided in some sort of small plaque. The unveiling of this sculpture will be held during opening ceremonies of the 100th anniversary celebrations, and later will be displayed in Town Hall. This report recommends the following: that the report LCS 2022-19 entitled Donation of the Bronze Sculpture of Tecumseh be received, and that bylaw number 22041 being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Guy R. Reeve for the donation of the bronze sculpture of Chief Tecumseh be adopted, and further that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the agreement between the town of Tecumseh and Guy R. Grieve for the donation of the sculpture for permanent display. Thank you, your worship, and I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Alexander. Any questions or comments? Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, I just want to say, I'm sure we'll all indicate so, but to the Grieve family members all involved, this is very nice to think of the town of Tecumseh. And I'm glad to see they had some images and illustrations, photographs of the sculpture. It's really nice to see that, for sending that. And again, for thinking of the town of Tecumseh and providing this donation. Very kind, very generous, and very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tonio.
I also just like to say thank you very much for the donation. It's going to look beautiful in our new building. Going to be making some shelves for another bus. So I'm sure with Miss Evans, we'll create something else. We're using some wood from one of our parks. We had to cut down a tree, unfortunately. So we'll be able to repurpose that for some shelves for these buses that have been donated. So thank you very much. It's going to look beautiful in our town.
Yeah, and you know, it'll be nice to add that with obviously the sculpture for at the 100th anniversary and from the Indigenous folks. So you know, it's going to be very, very. I think for the Indigenous people in the region, it's going to be very emotional, and so we certainly want to extend our thanks. So I'm glad Councillor Altenhoff and Councillor Tonio have extended that. Any further questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Evans.
I just wanted to point out through your worship that two of our employees are actually related to the artist. And so we're very happy that, you know, that they can, during their time of employment with the town, that they can see the artist's donation come to Tecumseh and be displayed permanently.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Yes. Any further questions or comments? Then a motion to adopt the recommendation. Councillor Altenhoff and Councillor Jobin. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Move on to, again, call upon our Deputy Clerk and Manager of Legislative Services, summarize and report recommendation on the elimination of town buildings policy.
Thank you, your worship. The final one tonight. The elimination of town building policies. The policy has been drafted and it is attachment 1. In recent years, the town of Tecumseh has received various requests to eliminate town hall property in a specific color associated with a charitable cause or a commemorative significant event. Currently, the town has no policy on commemorative events or celebrations to illuminate town hall or any other buildings. Tonight, the draft policy has been drafted for council's consideration. The policy outlines that outside organizations are eligible through a written request, including the desired color, the event date details to the legislative and clerk services departments 2 weeks prior to their event. If the town receives 2 or more requests for the same date, the conflict would be settled in favor for the organization that made the request first. As council is aware, in the report LCS-2022-14 entitled National Accessibility Week was presented at the April 26 regular council meeting to highlight some of the activities happening at Town Hall to celebrate. In an effort to raise awareness of this week, the Accessibility Committee is requesting that council consider eliminating the Town Hall red during National Accessibility Week from May 30th to June 3rd, 2022. And as the mayor alluded earlier this evening, this report recommends the following: that the report be received and that the illumination of town buildings policy as appended to the report be adopted, And further that council authorize illuminating town hall red on Monday, May 30th to Friday, June 3rd in honor of National Accessibility Week. Thank you, Your Honor, and I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Alexander. Any questions or comments? Councillor Ottenhoff?
Thank you, Worship, and through you to administration. Do we have an idea of the interest in the illuminating town hall, but by these various organizations? Is it 1 or 2, or is it 20 or 30? I'm just curious. What's the level of interest for such activity?
Madam CEO?
Sure, thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Well, this year alone, we've had 2, and we have kind of been, anticipating that there may be, a few a year. Also, the town itself may wish to illuminate for particular events. For example, during using one of the town's colors during the 4-day event celebrating the town's 100th anniversary. So those events, if the town should decide that they want to do certain things on certain dates, would be priorities as well that would be worked into the policy. So it may be only a few a year, but at least we now have a policy to fall back on, and we're not unprepared for such requests or for our own purposes.
And just as a thank you.
Supplementary.
Yeah, thank you very much. As a follow-up, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the efforts in developing this policy because it'll help kind of give some guidance. I also notice in 5.2 administration policy, and we hope this will never run to this, but if we see more interest and uptake, of course, there may be some conflicts necessarily with timing. I hope, for the best interest, these various organizations will work together to ensure that we all do kind of the best thing for everyone, recognizing that sometimes we may have some challenges, but if we can yield a little bit here, yield a little bit there for all of us to do the best we can do, I think that would be appreciated. I know it's been hard to put that into words, but I think in at 5.2, that's the spirit of that, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Houston?
Oh, thank you, Worship. And through you, I'm just curious, do we have the existing lighting infrastructure in place to accommodate all the colors of the rainbow, or, are we going to invest in, the LED lights? I just, the techie in me is just wondering how we plan on doing that.
Mr. Anthony, he's got the answers.
I'll make an attempt. So through the mayor to Councillor Houston, yes, we do have a couple units that are here. Our facilities manager, Dan Walecki, was able to secure them. I believe it was a month ago when there was a request to color the building. And it does have a number of colors that can be illuminated. So it may not be the exact color tone, but it will be close. And there is a large number of colors that can be selected on that unit.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions or comments? Then on the question, the adoption of the report moved by Councillor Houston, supported by Deputy Mayor Becchetti. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. All right, members of council, that leads us now to bylaws. So I'll call upon our deputy clerk to read bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are 4 bylaws on tonight's agenda. Bylaw number 2022-038, which is a bylaw to authorize the execution of a development agreement between the town and Old Castle Heights, Inc., which was reported earlier this month. Bylaw 39, which is a bylaw to adopt cannabis retail stores policy statement and to delegate authorities and duties associated to providing municipal comments to an application for proposed retail cannabis store. Bylaw number 40 is being a bylaw to confirm and appoint certain officers, servants, and employees to the corporation of the town of Tecumseh. and bylaw number 41, which is being a bylaw to authorize the agreement between the town and Guy R. Grief. We are respectfully asking for first and second readings, and if appropriate, third and final.
All right, thank you, Ms. Alexander. On 2 readings, moved by Councillor Altenhoff, Councillor Tony will support. Any questions or comments in the bylaws? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried, and 3 readings are now in order. Moved by Councillor Houston, supported by Councillor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, any unfinished business? All right. Is there any new business? Deputy Mayor Becchetti.
Thank you, Your Mayor. I received a request from Chicharo Club. I know it's late in the game. We have in the past did a flag raising ceremony for the Festa della Repubblica in Italy. That was the year that monarchy ended in 1946, where Italy became a republic. And so June 2nd is a festival that they celebrate in Italy. And in the past, we've done it here at the town hall where we had a little ceremony. It's basically very simple. If possible, again, the president, Ms. Boza, asked if it's not possible, even if we can commemorate it with acknowledging it at a council meeting, that June 2nd is the Festa della Repubblica. And if we can do the ceremony like they have in the past, they're willing to work with town staff to put a little ceremony together on that Wednesday morning. So I just bring it up forward for discussion in terms of what are the thoughts of council, if that's something that they wish to do. And again, she apologizes for the late. If it's not possible, she's completely understands.
Well, it's, to me, it's not a big deal. You know, normally what we've done is they usually bring about maybe a dozen or so or more from their club members, and they usually have the vice council general you know, come, and we basically raise the flag, they say a few words, they sing the national anthem of Italy and national anthem of Canada, and then call it a day, because actually June is Italian month, and it's recognized by the federal government as well. And so I certainly don't have any issues, you know, in that regards. It's obviously it's a matter of getting our podium outside and moving forward. Councillor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. And to Deputy Mayor, if I heard you correctly, June 2nd, did you say was the date? Right, and that's the election right here in Ontario as well that day. And so I don't know if, you know, we do it that day or the day before, or if it matters at all. I just bring it up.
I've already voted, so
Yeah,
I'm all set.
it's not a, it's a simple ceremony. Again, it's more them coming here. We just have to step outside and say a few words. Again, keep it simple. Even the podium, we might not even need to do that, but it's more of that flag raising where you just put it up and again,
30 minutes.
Yeah. And
Councillor,
again, if it's not possible, then at least, like I say, we could acknowledge it here, maybe in a formal resolution that we acknowledge that. And if it happens, the other part that we can see. But I said I'd raise it tonight.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, I know I've attended the event, you know, at least once or twice, I want to say. And to be honest with you, I think it's appropriate. It's good. It's, as you've indicated, short, sweet. It doesn't, I think, doesn't take too much efforts. You know, I look to administration because, you know, they'd have to set a few things up, but I don't think there's a lot of time in prepping. And given the fact that we've done it for a number of past years, and there is a request, you know, from a big group within Tecumseh to try to facilitate this, I really would hope that we could make it happen. So I look to administration, see if they.
Actually, the flag itself is in our cabinet here in you know, just next to my office.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, and I see Mr. Anthony is on to help me out here because I haven't been here for one of these ceremonies, so I'm at a bit of a loss in terms of
COVID.
experience. Yeah, due to the COVID. I mean, certainly we can work with your contact, Deputy Mayor, and you know, provided that there is support from the organization to do the invitations and what have you. I believe we can manage, but I will defer to
Yeah.
Mr. Anthony, who has been here for this in the past, please.
And just let you know, Mark, too, is that our twin city is Frosinone, and which is the capital of the Lazio region, you know, south of Rome, and well, a whole bunch of little communities within that area. There's 21, I believe, 21 towns in that region, and that forms the Chicharo or Chicharia region. And so they are our twin cities, Frosinone.
So through the mayor, yes, it is not a big issue to pull this off. We would just need the time, Deputy Mayor, that Anna wants to hold the ceremony. One of my other concerns was the flag. The mayor has taken care of that. We have it on site, so it's here. We'll certainly have the podium out and the flag ready to be raised at the time that they kind of want to do the ceremony. And I think outside of that, there's really not a lot to pull off. I think they invite the individuals they want there, probably as well as council. And we certainly can have it all ready to go.
Yeah,
thank you.
and I believe though, Deputy Mayor, the Wednesday is June 1st, not June 2nd.
Well, okay, when is the, let me just double check.
Because the Thursday, I think.
Yeah, it's Thursday morning. It would be June
Thursday?
2nd is the actual day.
Okay,
So if we did a 9:31, and again, even if it's just a ceremonial with, you know, 8 to 10 bodies from the club and a few members of council who can attend and do the ceremony and that's it. I think that would suffice. But again, Ms.
to be
Moser,
early.
the president, she apologizes for the late notice, and she mentioned if it doesn't happen, she's okay with it as well.
yeah, because actually it's the election, but it's also, we fly out to Regina that day.
So if I could, Mr. Mayor, if that time does work for you and doesn't, you know, interfere with travel plans and what have you, then could we just have a motion from the deputy mayor to hold the flag raising ceremony in favor of the, I'll let you speak to the title again, the deputy mayor on June 2nd, and we'll, just for the record, we'll have that as supported by all of council.
Yep, I'll make the motion. Thank you, Mark, that we do a flag raising ceremony on June 2nd to recognize Republic Day, or known as the Festival of the Republic. It's a national holiday on June 2nd in Italy. And again, it celebrates the day where Italians voted to abolish the monarchy in 1946 so their country could become a republic. So if we can do again, a very simple ceremony on June 2nd, we could say 9:30 a.m.
Yep.
And administration can kind of connect with Anna Voza, where she'll be responsible to do the invitations, whatever. We just basically show up and do the flag raise. I think our part will be very minimal. So I'll make that into a formal motion under new business.
Okay, so move, supported by Councilor Tonio. No further questions or comments on, oh, go ahead, Tanya? No? Okay, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Any
you.
further new business? Yes, Councilor Jobin.
Thank you. And through you, I would just like to inform everyone that St. Mary's in Maidstone, the family parish, it is one of the oldest parishes in the Diocese of London. It will be celebrating their 175th anniversary on June 5th, starting at 12:30. The bishop is coming. Let me just see the details I have here. Mass with the bishop, and then a reception at the hall to follow. And also there'll be a ball game. I don't know if everyone's aware, but the Maidstone Shamrocks were a big to-do back in the day, and a lot of them will be well, I should say, who are still with us will be out and about as well participating, but it'll be a fantastic grand event for the community there. And I hope to see every one of you, or if anyone can make it, that would be great.
Unfortunately, Councilor Jobin, you're going to have to represent the mayor and the deputy mayor. We're going to be at the FCM conference. But I think to Sean, she put it on our certainly our website and invite the community to certainly participate.
For sure. Will do. Thank you.
Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you to the point that Councillor Jobin just raised, do you think it would be appropriate just to provide maybe a congratulatory letter or
Oh, yes.
form of, something on behalf of yourself and council just to the church? I think that would be good. Sorry, I see you nodding, so I think it's done. I just wanted to raise that. Thank you, Worship.
175 years is worth celebrating.
That's for sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, good point. And that's done. That'll be done. And, okay, and any further new business? Councilor Tonio.
Thank you. And this is to Mr. Bartnick. He's available. Hello, sir. Just wondering on that parking lot on Tecumseh Road, the cleanup, when, summer's starting here, the bench and the newspaper stuff, when can we anticipate some cleanup on that area again? Sorry to bring it up again, but.
Thank you through your worship. We did retain the services of a contractor to go out and inspect the bus stop shelter. It is suffering from some significant rot, so we are looking at taking that down, but we do have some other contractors kind of lined up for fence replacement, cutting some additional tree limbs and replacement of the some of the brick pavers in front of the bus stop there as well. So it has been a little bit slower this year than most years with respect to contractors getting people lined up. Everybody seems to be pretty busy. Even getting locating services done, which used to be a 2-week time period, is now stretching out to about 6 weeks just to get locates completed. So definitely on our to-do list, and we hope to get to it fairly soon.
Thank you very much. Awesome.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments on new business? No further. So then a confirmatory bylaw is now in order of the proceeding of our meeting. Councillor Altenhoff, Councillor Tonio on 3 readings to confirm the proceedings. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any notices of motion? None. Our next meeting, members of council, June 7th, Tuesday, 5:30 public council meeting, a townwide CIP industrial incentives, and 6:30 quarter revision. That's the LaChange drain. And so no further business to deal with this evening. Then adjournment is now in order. Councillor Altenhoff and Councillor Houston, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. And with that, folks, until we meet again, thank you for your indulgence this evening, members of the audience that are viewing, and also administration for being part of our reports. And so with that, we bid you a good night, and until we meet again on June the 7th.